let's talk about the metal gods now, shall we? I'm also Basics, I'm back to another video, and today, this is a big project I'm doing, guys. This is a career retrospective of the metal gods themselves, the mighty Judas Priest. You guys have been wondering why I haven't uploaded in a while. This is why. I have been working on this for about a week now. I've listened to most of the albums. I will say this is part one. I have just finished watching Ram It Down. The second part is going to be from Painkiller all the way to their latest album, Firepower. Judas Priest was a band I've not heard of. Their first song I listened to was Painkiller. And I'm like, okay, that's a good song, but after that, I never listened to any of their albums. Until I listened to Jugulator, and I've already talked about that. I've made a video about Jugulator. That is my favorite Priest album. Now, there are some other good albums that this band has produced, like Painkiller, Ram It Down, Sad Wings of Destiny, Firepower, Redeemer of Souls, Angel of Retribution. There are some great ones. Screaming for Vengeance, Sin After Sin. This band has produced a lot of good stuff. There are some duds, of course, because every band has a dud. Except if you're Wasp. That band has no bad album. Maybe except Neon God, but that's a concept album, and I'll give them a pass on that. So yeah, if you guys have been wondering why I haven't uploaded in a little bit, this is why. I've listened to every album. I had stopped at Painkiller because if I do it all in one video, it would be way too long, and it'll most likely be in two parts. So I figured, why the hell not? Let's just do a two-part one. And guys, this has been interesting because let me just talk about this. Their first album is Rocka Rolla, 1974. You may be thinking, is this a metal album? No, it's not. It's actually just a rock album. And that's a couple reasons why people don't like Judas Priest. There are a couple reasons is Rocka Rolla, they didn't start off as a metal band. They started as a generic 70s rock band. The Ripper Owens era, I'll talk about that when I talk about Demolition and Jugulator. Nostradamus, and I'll talk about that later on. And another one is that the lead singer, Rob Halford, turned out to be homophobic later on in the years. Just because someone is homophobic or gay doesn't mean that they suck. I can, count on a couple occasions where there's a couple band members from popular bands that are gay and people love them. So what makes this band any different? So just because the lead singer is gay or a member of a band is gay doesn't mean that you hate them. That just comes off as ridiculous to me. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Rocka Rolla. And oh dear, this was not a good album. This was boring, long, pretentious, and snore-inducing. I could not tell you how many times I about fell asleep listening to this album. And I was fully awake. This was not good. This had Al Atkins, K.K. Downing, Halford, Tipton, wasn't Dave Holland on drums? I'm pretty sure he was on drums at this time. Or, no, it was Hitch and Ian Hill. This was not a good album. This album just blew. Best song, Cheater, I guess, but it's not a good song by any stretch of imagination. Worst track, Everything Else. Seriously, Rocka Rolla, the title track, Rocka Rolla, Winter, just everything sucks about this album. It literally sounds like a low budget, Deep Purple or Led Zeppelin or hell, even an early Motley Crue. This is boring. What a pile this was. And thankfully, the next album took things up a notch. The next album, Sad Wings of Destiny from 1976. This was the album that should have started off in the Priest catalog. The birth of true Judas Priest, as many people would say, and I would think fully agree. You're probably wondering why is the video pausing. It's because I might go on a little bit about some of these albums, so just bear with me. This is where Judas Priest started to come into their own. Is there some iffy moments? Sure, but every band has their iffy moments. Worst track, Epitaph. What in the hell were they thinking with this? This song is so random. It comes out of left field. What were they thinking with this album? Literally, I have no clue what they were thinking. There's some headbangers like Genocide, Tyrant. Just fantastic songs. Best song, a tie between Victim of Changes and The Ripper. Best screams you'll ever hear on this song. Halford hits the biggest shrieks he's heard, and it wouldn't stop there. He would continue shrieking until the later years, until he did his solo stuff. Sorry, when he did his solo stuff after Painkiller, he'd still do all good stuff, except some of his solo albums kind of sucked. Remember that 2 album with Trent Reznor? Pepperidge Farm remembers. But yeah, Sad Wings of Destiny, the birth of true Judas Priest, and the birth of the metal gods themselves. Next up is Sin After Sin, 1977. Good follow-up. How does one follow up on a badass album like Sad Wings of Destiny? You don't. You just make sure you keep up that momentum going and you crank out Sin After Sin. A good follow-up to an otherwise excellent album after Sad Wings of Destiny. There are some iffy moments and I'll talk about that. This is when they were getting out of the ballad stuff, even though that they were kind of ballad heavy. And I'll talk about the worst songs. Worst song, Last Rose of Summer and Here Come the Tears. What in God's name were they thinking with this one? I was going to put Let Us Pray on here because Glenn Tipton couldn't sound like Queen if he had an afro and a failed marriage. I mean, what in God's name were these songs? These just lie there, just waiting for you to give a damn, but you don't. It's so boring and so unneedly. Best track, the underrated Dissonant Aggressor. One of the best shrieks you'll ever hear. Period. And this could have started the thrash metal genre as we know it, like people like Anthrax, Slayer, and even Megadeth. This song may have invented that genre because, good lord, the shrieks and the riffs are unbelievable. There's some other standouts like Sinner, Starbreaker, and Call for the Priest / Raw Deal. This was a great album and a solid follow-up to Sad Wings of Destiny. Next up is Stained Class. Not Stained Glass, which I thought it was originally called. Stained Class. 1978, and oh, this is uncomfortable for a certain amount of reasons. During this time, a couple teenage metal burnouts, filed a lawsuit against Priest, and I'll talk about that when they did the Painkiller album. This was an amazing, no bad song on this album. Literally zero bad song on this album. You got the title track, Beyond the Realms of Death. You get Exciter, which is a weird way to start off this otherwise unnerving album. Best track, I'll go with Saints in Hell. It's a big, punchy, get in, get out, kicking the scrotum by a mule, but damn if it isn't fun and headbanging to listen to. Stained Class, underrated and uncomfortable, recommended. This is where things are going to be a bit interesting. This is when the British steel and the new wave of British heavy metal tradition is starting to come around for the metal gods. Next up is Hellbent for Leather in the US, but Killing Machine in the UK, 1979. This was a good album, but they we're in a genre called the power pop ballad. Oh my god. Evening Star is one of the worst Priest songs I've heard in a dog's age. Literally, what in God's name were they thinking with this album? Or with the song? Literally. It's not the worst Priest song because that will come into British Steel. Holy Lord, this song just bites. And not in a good way because it just goes off the rails with how dumb it is. Best track, Delivering the Goods. I would have gone with Hellbent for Leather itself and was there another good song that I listened to? I can't remember. Delivering the Goods and the title track, best songs in Judas Priest's career. Hellbent for Leather and Killing Machine. Solid, but it would be nothing until the commercial success that came on the next year. And of course, I'm talking about the 1980 immutable classic that is British Steel. I'm going to be honest with you guys. This album, I understand why people call it a classic. But to me, there's too much of a power pop ballad on some of these songs, and thus the record's just kind of there. This was the battering ram of the new wave of British heavy metal, but to be honest, some of the songs here are just kind of there. You got songs like Living After Midnight, which it isn't trash. It's cheesy, but yeah, it's no, it's just not good. Worst track, United. I mean, what else do I have to say about the song that has been said? Best track, Metal Gods and Steeler. Both are just kick-ass riffs and harmonizing vocals that will just sympathize and just hypnotize you until your brain starts getting turned just bleeding or rots. It's just so hypnotic. It's just fantastic. Metal God. Cut that out. No, cut it. Sorry about that. Next album is Point of Entry. This is underrated in some ways, but it kind of leads to... Priest kind of took a step back a little bit, but there were still, still on a good track here. Worst song, You Say Yes and Don't Go. What in God's name were these tracks? Horrendous. Bad song. Swing metal? What? No, that does not work on a Priest album, and it did not work here. Best track? I mean, you got some headbangers like Desert Plains and Heading Out to the Highway, but for my opinion, it's just plain gonorrhea that is turning circles. Holy Christ, that song just makes you want to... just run around in circles until you start feeling dizzy, and then you puke later on, and then you have to worry about the dog not trying to look it up. What am I on about? I don't know. Point of Entry, underrated, and a pretty good album overall. After Point of Entry, Judas Priest were wondering to themselves, do they still have what it takes to make a good metal album? You got your British Steel and Hellbent for Leather, and you got Point of Entry. But Judas Priest are wondering to themselves, you know what, why don't we create an album that the public and the fans themselves would generally enjoy? What do you get? You get Screaming for Vengeance in 1982. This was a barn burner here, folks. Just a bad-ass album. You get anthem after anthem after ass-kicking anthem. Everything about this album just reeks of intensity and just fun. You get some headbangers like the Hellion into Electric Eye. You get the title track. You get Take These Chains, Devil's Child, Prisoner of Your Eyes. To me, this album is just immutable classic. Best song, the title track, Electric Eye, and just the plain holy Christ, the Bloodstone. Just ugh. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful songs. Worst track, I'll go with Pain and Pleasure, but it has its moments. Screaming for Vengeance, underrated, highly recommend, and highly, highly check it out. Since Screaming for Vengeance was a awesome album, Judas Priest were wondering themselves, can we still top themselves into what they were doing? You know, you got your awesome, they weren't at the top anymore. Iron Maiden, Metallica, Motley Crue, Motorhead, Accept, Wasp, Saxton. They were all up at the top, but couldn't Judas Priest top themselves in making another good album? The answer, hell yeah. With Defenders of the Faith, Judas Priest found themselves to be an awesome and always an epic metal band. This album is just fantastic. Is there some bad? Oh yeah, the last 3 songs are the ones that just sap the life out of this thing. Pretty much it'll be making that slurpy noise every time you try to suck on the Capri Sun. The worst tracks are the last 3. Night Comes Down, Heavy Duty, in the freaking title track. What the hell were those songs? They weren't even on the album, and they still sucked. Best track, literally everything else. Love Bites, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, Eat Me Alive, Rock Hard, Ride Free, The Jawbreaker, Sentinel. But to me, my favorite from Defenders of the Faith, I literally can't pick one because all of these songs are good except for the last 3. Yeah, just everything about this album is just fantastic. What is more you could say about what happened to the next album? Alright, let's talk about Turbo. 1986 came around and Judas Priest released Turbo. Now, Turbo is not unlistenable. Let's just get that out of the way. But it suffers from the same fate that Rocka Rolla has. It does not sound like Priest. Making they're rehashing the same thing but with synthesizers. A little bit of a backstory. When Rob Halford and the band were doing Turbo, Rob Halford was in a dark place in his mind. He was doing drugs, he was doing alcohol, he was doing everything. And then Rob Halford was living with his then boyfriend that managed to shoot his brains out, and then Rob Halford tried to do the same. I don't care how many CC's of Bogota's best, to quote Razor Fist. I don't care how many of those are thinking through your think box. You ain't shrugging that off. In the end, Halford tried to do the same thing that his boyfriend did, but luckily survived. And my condolences to Rob Halford and to his then boyfriend's family. The silver lining? Rob Halford got off the junk and embraced himself in a fully decade that he has been clean. Fortunately, he released Turbo while this was all happening. Again, not unlistenable, but the synthesizers are kind of weird. Listen to this album, it sounds like Kiss at times, and it's just weird. It sounds like Kiss, Poison, and Motley Crue had a weird baby that somehow was smoking. Like Rob Halford. Turbo is not a bad song. Turbo Lover itself, great track. Worst song, Parental Guidance, is a righteous pile. Best track, Rock You Around the World, killer riff. Just cheesy synthesizer, but man, it's headbanging. The question is that how did Priest make themselves a fully sober band in the last decade? We'll have to see. There are people that I have talked to or I have heard that Ram It Down is the worst Priest album in the history of the band. I was thinking to myself, have you heard their first album? That sounds like Jimi Hendrix's Love Child had a spanking and got abused for so many years. Is it perfect? No, but you can hear the thunderous riffs of Painkiller starting to arise, and that is a immutable good thing. Worst track, Love Zone. What in the hell were they thinking with this one? Sorry, I got hiccups. Best track, probably Heavy Metal. I mean, the title track, Blood Red Skies, Johnny Be Good, Love You to Death is a pretty good song. But I'll have to go with Heavy Metal. Considering that some of the riffs are enormously thunderous. Just full... I got hiccups, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys, about that. But yeah, Heavy Metal just has thunderous riffs, killer screams, just full-on insanity. Recommended. That is my countdown for now there, Antelope Army. I will be talking about Priest's other albums from Painkiller to Firepower. And I will be making my Royal Rumble predictions when that comes around. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I apologize for the wait, but I have been working on this for about a week now. So, hopefully the patience is worth it. So, as always, like, comment, subscribe, tap the bell for more notifications. I'll talk to you guys next video. Keep up the epic work. I'll share more epic content on Muscle P6. Enjoying the herd. I'll talk to you guys next video. Peace!